Welcome to Matcha Mamas. I'm Silver, your host, and this is where we get real about parenting, the beautiful, the messy, and everything in between. No perfect answers here, just a space to be yourself, connect, and find some comfort in the shared experience of it all. So grab your matcha, settle in, and let's talk.
Mama.
Okay, welcome back. This is our third episode of February, which is bananas, and I'm so proud of myself because I went from posting no episodes in a year to posting 3 already. So I'm very proud of myself. I'm very excited, and that is why I'm coming to you with a week-old hair that I have not washed my hair in a week because I went to the head spa with my dear friend last week, and I just haven't washed it again because it kept coming up where I was like, okay, well, I'll wash my hair on this day. I'll do it this day. I'll do it this day. And then we get so close to the weekend that I'm like, I wash all my beautiful sheets on Sundays. I might as well wash my beautiful hair on Sunday so that I can just get into my nice clean bed and be super fresh and happy. So I have a lot of oil in my hair, and I'm being very brave right now and showing you my good, lovely dome. Just for reference, I do have a forehead, despite what some of my dear friends say about my lovely forehead. You should see my sister's forehead. That is a dome, let me tell you. You could land a fucking airplane. I'm so sorry. But you know what? They say that a big forehead correlates to intelligence, and my sister's the smartest person I know. So there you go. I will give you a little compliment after I insult you. That's what big sisters are for, right? So yes, I'm being very brave today. I'm coming to you in my unideal form, and that is okay. That is what this podcast is all about. It's about showing up imperfectly, and here I am imperfectly, strategically, unintentionally. I have this mic in front of my neck because I have a giant, let me just show you. I have a gigantic little friend growing on my neck, and she won't go away. She's here to stay. She's made plans. She's hunkered down for the winter. I look fantastic, okay? I look beautiful. And yes, let's have our little matcha. If I'm going to be blasphemous right now, I'm having a cup of tea. I know. I do, however, have my mug because last week I stole my husband's because mine was in the wash. But now I have my mug that I like, so I'm very pleased about that. But I already had a matcha this morning, and I'm recording this after 3 o'clock, so I'm just having a little cup of tea. Okay, let's catch up, moms. What are we talking about today? Pee, poo, sleep. I'm going to add husbands or partners. We are inclusive. But I'm going to add husbands to this list of catching up, which is super apropos for this episode. This episode is a callback to the first episode in February on Valentine's Day, all about sexy things, but we'll get to that. Anyways, I think I forgot that when I catch up with my girlfriends, my mom friends, we always end up talking about our partners at some point. So I'm adding this to the list. And now that I said I don't know if I have a ton to talk about husbands or partners this week, I'm just going to say husbands, but just know that I'm being inclusive, but I have a husband. So, okay, so pee, poo, still going well, still going strong. Nothing really to report for peas and poos. Sleep, oh my gosh. Ladies, I've had kind of a week. My last weekend was very eventful. I had some things going on with my dear friends that I had to attend to, and that was lovely. And then all throughout the week, I was like, woohoo, Lunar New Year. Absolutely. I was having a nice little time. I am woo enough to tell you that there's a lot of going on energetically this week. There was the Lunar New Year and a solar eclipse, and the planets were moving and la-ti-da. There's a lot of energies going on. I was processing a lot of weird feelings came up. I was on my period. I was processing a lot, okay? And then we finished off the week and I was feeling a little bit okay. We put my daughter down to bed on Thursday night, and then we wake up and she's screaming bloody murder. She slept through the night again for the first time in a while, and we were very excited, but then we wake up and she's screaming. She didn't want to move. She was saying that she was in pain, and that is scary. You're a 2-year-old and you're saying you're in pain and you don't want to move. You don't want to be touched. It was scary. Immediately, we checked her out. Last September, she had nurse's made elbow where the ligament gets wrapped around the elbow. I believe that's how it goes. But essentially, we had to take her to the hospital and they just popped her back in. So I was like, did you do that again? Because she fell funny the first time she did that, which was also odd because usually you get that that from pulling on your kid's arms or swinging their arms or swinging them around or something. It just kind of slips because they're so loosey-goosey and jello-y and rubbery. But she just woke up and was in pain. So we were trying to figure out what was going on. We watched back on the camera to see what was going on. She wasn't doing anything. However, she was sleeping on her arm half the night. She kind of was sleeping in a weird position, but they're kids. We didn't think that you would get stiff or anything like that. So it was kind of odd. So we called 811, which is our nurse hotline, and I told them exactly what happened. I told them about her previous injury, everything, and they said, call 911. And I was, oh my God, why? Like, scary. And I remembered that because my friend Jem had meningitis, and one of the symptoms of meningitis is a stiff neck. So I immediately was like, oh my gosh, she's thinking meningitis. And so then I took her temperature, no fever, nothing. I didn't really want to call 911 right away because at that point, my daughter was kind of settling and she was okay if she wasn't moving from this position where she had her head tilted to the right. So, and my daughter can communicate quite well, and that's something we've always worked on, and it comes in handy for you to be very clear about body parts, what pain is, and how to communicate it. So she told us her arm was hurting and that her neck was hurting and her shoulder was hurting. So we kind of did some tests. We got her to reach for preferred objects, and she could do that, but then she wouldn't want to turn her head. So we kind of figured out it was more isolated in the shoulder and neck area, and we have an urgent care really close to us, so we literally kept her in that position, popped her in the carrier, and booked it over to urgent care. We got seen very quickly, luckily, because we were there at 8 o'clock in the morning as soon as it opened. So we got seen, we got assessed, and the doctor checked her out. She kind of did the same thing. She was kind of worried about the neck pain, and she was like, it's not impossible for kids, and because they don't understand pain really well, it might feel really scary, which is why she's thinking she can't move at all. Kids are not normally in pain, so it's scary. We were there for 4 hours. They kept her for observation. They gave her just Tylenol, Advil. They checked her temperature. They checked all her other vitals. Everything else was good. She was otherwise very healthy. They gave her a lovely red freezy. She had a great time. I was trying to stay calm. My husband was staying calm, and essentially they sent us home after she kind of looked a lot better and she was moving around a lot more. So we got to go home, and she was fine after a few hours. She was completely fine. We put a warm compress on the back of her neck, and she was happy. So she was fine. So really, we took her to urgent care for a stiff neck, which I think is hilarious. And of course, you take your kid's health seriously, especially if there's pain involved. But we were laughing because we were like, oh, we just took you and spent 4 hours in urgent care for a stiff neck. So that was fun. And then it was raining and I was feeling a little bit low, and there's just a lot going on. For me emotionally, it's very odd. I was feeling very reflective, and there was something that actually quite set me off, to be honest, because at daycare, they have naps and they sleep in sleep sacks. But my daughter gets really the word we use is rackly. I made this word up when I was a kid, and basically it just means that uncomfortable, claustrophobic feeling. She gets really rackly with her sleep sacks, and she just, when needs it to be perfect, she wants to put it on, and she takes forever. So at home, she doesn't wear sleep sacks anymore because it just wasn't worth it. We offer her a blanket, but most of the time she just wants nothing, and we keep it warm in here so that she doesn't need anything. But we were talking to my really good friend who works at the daycare, and she was saying maybe we should try something else, a blanket or something, because she's getting really frustrated with the sleep sack and it's taking forever and we don't have time to do this song and dance with her every time. And of course they will, but let's try different options to make everybody's lives easier. So we bring in a blanket. I pick her up from daycare and I look at one of the teachers and I was like, how did the blanket go? And she looked horrified. It looked like she had gone through the trenches and back just because of my daughter. And that was not her intention. And I think I have a good relationship with the teachers where they can be honest with me, because I try to create a safe space. Of course, there are times where if I don't agree with the teacher, I'm going to be a mom. I'm going to support and defend my child. But the teachers in her classroom right now, I think I have a really good relationship with them. So I think she was just being honest. It was frustrating, but she really just, all she said was, maybe we can go back to the sleep sack. And I was like, okay, no worries. So that though, I turned around and it sunk in me. I was like, oh my God, I'm the worst parent in the world. They hate my child. And of course, I'm not trying to put that on my daughter. I'd never want her to have to deal with my emotions. I try to be honest with them, but I was like, no, it's okay. Let me just process this. I'm really sensitive this week. There's a lot going on, whatever. So I'm driving home and I'm thinking about it. And then I go to meet my friend for dinner. And the entire time I'm on my way to dinner and I'm sitting in traffic, I'm thinking about creating a behavior support plan for my daughter. And because of my work and my experience and just who I am, I'm very solution based. So I'm like, I hear you're having a problem with my daughter at school. Let me give you a document of solutions, because I do have a very high energy daughter and child, and I have raised her to be opinionated and I have raised her to express that. And that is something I'm proud of and I think I do really well. But obviously that makes it more challenging as a parent, because I want her to question authority. I want her to not just blindly follow people because they're an adult, not even me. I want her to do that. But then, of course, schools or daycares are not really designed like that. They kind of want you to just follow the structure. And I get that. So I wanted to provide support to the teachers. So I'm thinking about this and I message our friend at daycare and I was just, hey, this is kind of what I'm thinking. And she calls me instantly and she's like, no, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I just want to be helpful. And she's like, that's too much. She's also got a lot going on in her own personal life. So she's like, I'm not trying to come across as a bitch. I love you to death. And I also know how you are. And I don't want you to go to this extreme when this is not an issue. If we were having an issue with your daughter at daycare, you would be spoken to. And she's like, I would tell you, hey, this is not working at daycare. She needs some more support, or what strategies can you use with her? And she's right. She would totally do that. And I trust her with my child. We put her in this daycare and we pay this fuck ton of money because we trust them. And I know that they would tell us if there was an issue. So I was kind of creating this whole problem in my mind, shocking as one does. And I was feeling very insecure about my parenting. And I kept coming back to me as a child and how I see myself in my daughter so much. And I hear my mother coming out of my mouth. I don't want to crush her spirit, but the world is a box and she needs to figure out how to survive in the box. And I'm like, that was what worked for then and I survived, but how can I make it easier for my daughter? How can I make her spirit more tolerable and palatable for others? Or should I just tell her to go fucking wild and be her fucking self and be proud of it and everyone can fucking deal? It's just, I'm kind of stuck with that and I still don't really have an answer. And it's something that I do think I'm going to explore because I think my mom did a really good job of it. And I think it's just me being the kid instead of the parent and me putting myself in my daughter's shoes. My mom never made me feel bad for who I was, but other adults did. So I'm kind of feeling protective over that. And I don't ever want my daughter to feel how I did going through school, where I literally had teachers and other parents telling me, hey, these kids are actually going to be something with their life and they're actually going to do something really great and you're not. And basically don't waste our time and their time. So I think I'm hoping times are different, but I'm also just feeling protective. And I know I'm projecting and putting that on my kid. So instead of freaking out, I talked to my friends and I talked to my friend who I went to dinner with because she has twins. And I was like, do you feel like this? And she was like, girl, what was wrong with you? Like, I know. I'm navigating it. I'm not doing anything yet because I like to think, I like to plan, and I like to research before I really do anything. I'm very calculated, which sounds bad, but I am very calculated. I look into a lot of things before I do anything. So I haven't done anything yet, but that's how I'm feeling. So that's my mom catch up. Thank you for listening. And if you feel the same way, let me know. And if you have an answer, let me know. Either way, I will figure it out. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about something juicy and fun. And I'm going to start this off with, if you are offended by what I'm about to say, I want you to think about that, okay? I want you to think about why. And if I bring you up, dear friends, as an example, don't take offense to that. It's because I love you. And this is my experience. And you are a part of that experience. Our Valentine's Day episode, we talked about intimacy postpartum. So staying on that kind of theme, I want you to think about what sustains a relationship after a baby. After you become a parent, what sustains a relationship? So I think it's a really interesting conversation. And again, I am not perfect. My relationship is not perfect. I'm very lucky to have known my partner since we were very young. So I have experience and time on my hands. So that definitely gives me an advantage, but it's not perfect. Trust me. when I was pregnant, I was so hormonal and pregnant that I was so angry that I got out of a car and I walked home, and my husband had to follow me as I waddled down my street to my apartment, and then I refused to come into the apartment. So I'm just being honest. I'm going to tell you what advice I would give others and myself. I want to be honest that I am not perfect, and I'm not perfect in a relationship, and I don't have a perfect relationship. So let's just get that out of the way. And yes, so I have a lot of friends right now who are both after having kids, and I see their relationships, and I see people who are thinking about having kids and wanting kids, and now they're at the point or age where they're looking at partners with that in mind. Honestly, this is both for the person who is thinking about having kids and is dating and wants kids, and for the person who has had a baby and is in a relationship. This episode is not about, for example, like chore charts or like everything needing to be equal. It's more about emotional capacity for you and your partner, and to find someone who can hold you when you are not okay. That's it. Vamonos, let's go. The first thing I want to talk about is unequal mental loads. So mental load is not just emotional, it's also very practical. I always think mental load is not just about tasks. It's about planning, it's about anticipating, it's about carrying these invisible responsibilities, it's about managing stress, it's about regulating, it's about buffering stress. It's literally what I feel like a lot of the mom job is in a relationship. And I feel you can very easily slip into this authoritative manager, organizer, default parent because of your mental load, not because of preference. And something that I think a lot of people need to recognize is that it's really hard to be attracted to someone romantically and sexually and even emotionally when you feel very alone in responsibilities. It's very hard to be attracted to someone that you are managing. And something my friend said very well, why would I be attracted to you? I'm not attracted to children. And I'm paraphrasing because she used other words, but that's it. Like, why would you be attracted to someone that you are managing? And like some people, maybe that's their thing and they're fine with it and they like it. But I think the majority of people, especially moms that I've spoken to, they are not attracted to their partner when they feel like they're just their eldest child. They are their other child. So why would that be attractive? Like, what I find attractive is responsibility and accountability. And honestly, in a partner, especially as a father, I am the most attracted to my husband when he's like, I got it, it's done. If I don't have to remind him, if I don't have to nag him, if I don't have to feel like his mother, I am so attracted to him. The second he puts me in a position where I'm his parent, that's not attractive. That's not hot. That's not it. And I think it's really hard to, and we'll talk about more like divisions of labor and like equality in that way. But I feel like there's a lot of things where I've felt really insecure as a mom or as a parent and as a co-parent, because a lot of like the work that I'm doing is very mental and might look more maintenance for our world rather than like actual child care. So for example, there's some days where my husband does a lot more child care than I do, but I'm sitting there, I'm booking appointments, I'm figuring out groceries, I'm figuring out inventory of things that we need for the house and for everything. And all that takes time and it takes a mental load. So like, yes, I'm behind the scenes, and my husband and I describe it as I'm the back end of a website and then he's the front end sometimes. And like, of course that switches because there's certain times where I'm like, hon, I don't understand this. I'm way too overwhelmed. You need to do this. I'm on baby duty. So I like to look at more as like a team. And I think a lot of the times dads especially don't know what goes into caring for a child. And I think it's more of that you have to play to your strengths, which we'll get to that. I'm getting ahead of myself. Next, let's talk about things like mental health and knowing your capacity. So for a very long time, I have struggled with things like OCD, anxiety, and depression. And then postpartum, those were tenfold. Even though I worked very hard on my mental health before I even tried for a child, you never know. And it's hormones and things happen and things change. It's really important that you pick a partner that can hold you through that and can support you through that. He has already seen me dysregulated and spiraling and grieving and overwhelmed, and he never ran. He never minimized. And of course, maybe at the beginning he did, because our case specifically, culturally, we are very different. He's from Korea, and the way they look at mental health is like, that doesn't exist. But he never shamed me. I think a lovely thing about him is, even if our cultures were different, he always heard me out, even if he didn't understand, and even if he still doesn't fully understand because he hasn't gone through the things that I've gone through. He's never minimized me, and he's never shamed me. He's always listened, and I think that's the thing. Experience is very helpful, of course, but I think that capacity piece is way more important. I didn't need him to know what to do. I didn't need him to be a therapist to me, but I just needed to know that he wouldn't leave or check out when things got hard. And luckily, I had already seen that before we even got married, because I put that man through the ringer, let me tell you. The thing that always means the most to me, and that stands out the most to me in seeing a partner, is that they're willing. It's that willingness and that capacity to try and to listen and to just try to meet you where you're at, and then make those changes as needed. So my husband kind of went from being my caretaker a little bit. And we kind of talked about the fact that when I was postpartum, I more focused on taking care of the baby, and he more took care of me. So of course it's hard, and that dynamic will change, and it's very natural, and it's new and unfamiliar. But I liked that he understood what he needed to do. He was willing to step in and step up and kind of meet me where I needed him, which was different from how I had ever needed him before. I did not need a caretaker or a caregiver before. Absolutely not. I was a little independent bitch. Of course, he still took care of me. I rarely fill up my own water bottle, to be cliche, but like, he really saw me where I was at, and he adapted to that role. And was that easy for us? No. Was that supernatural for him? No. But we got there together, and I think, again, it's that willingness to try that really made a big difference to me, because it's not easy to be a partner of somebody who is mentally unwell. When my postpartum anxiety, depression, OCD was at its peak, I was hallucinating. I was calling the help hotline. I was really unwell. I was going to therapy. I was going to postpartum groups. It was not a good time, and that is not easy for a partner. And that's something that Jem and I shared, where we both really struggled postpartum, and our partners really had to step up and suddenly become kind of our caretakers for a little bit. And that's not easy. So I think it's hard when you're in the moment, but you have to try to remember to give that person grace. It's not going to necessarily be incredibly intuitive for them to know how to support you when all of a sudden these hormones and the things that are coming out of your mouth are completely different than the person you might have been before you had a kid or before you got pregnant. I think we all go a little crazy, and I think that's normal and fine, and I think that they need to adapt. Obviously, you need to give them grace, but them being willing to try is the bare minimum. Let's just be clear. It's not like they should be getting a fucking award, but yeah, it's hard, but it also is the bare minimum. Sickness and in health. Marriage. Hello. And also, I think we need to talk about, what does willing actually mean? Not just, oh yeah, I'll try that, babe, and then do nothing. Willing is maybe not knowing what to say, but still sitting with you while you're going through those really hard, dark moments. And listening to you without trying to fix anything immediately, especially while you're spiraling, when you're just trying to figure everything out that's going on in your brain. Because let's be honest, sometimes we don't even know. We're just so upset. And this feeling of despair that's almost indescribable until you're actually in it, where it's like, I don't know why I feel this. I feel so sad, and I don't want to be here anymore, and I have no reason why. So you just kind of need someone to sit with you in that spiral and in that confusion, and while you're figuring it out, so you don't feel alone. Another thing I think my husband did really well, which is we've talked about previously, is he didn't take things personally, which was so hot, if I'm going to be honest. Like, it was so hot. It wasn't about his ego. There was no ego involved, which is very attractive to me, where I would say to him, I know you're doing everything, but I'm still not well, and him not taking that personally and him being receptive to feedback and not completely shutting down when I was uncomfortable or when he was uncomfortable, and that he was just willing to keep trying even if he wasn't getting it right, which is what is right, really. You're just trying your best and you're trying to navigate this together. But I really appreciate that. Willingness to me was a huge form of love. Willingness should be a love language, to be honest. I think that was a huge thing for me. And once we kind of figured that out, even now, oh my gosh. It's so funny, the things that not turn you on, but just make you love your partner, because my daughter has many allergies, but one of the ones that we're working on right now is peanut allergy. So she has to have this tiny, 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 tiny little dash of peanut powder once a day. And then there was a day where I looked at my husband and I was like, oh my God, we really need to be better at this. We didn't do the peanut for the past 2 days. And he's, what are you talking about? I did it. I was, wow. Yes, honey. Yes. The fact that he was like, no, I did it. He didn't need to tell me. Maybe honestly, he should have told me, because I might have double dosed her. But anyways, he handled it. He knew what we had to do and he handled it. Like my husband, we both work full time, but most of the time we are both at those appointments. We are both there because we both equally care. If we can't, obviously there's situations where you just can't be there, or your husband can't be there. And that's not necessarily a dig at your partner, but sometimes even I can't take her to this appointment, can you? So sometimes, and more often than not, it's more about availability than effort. But I like that my husband isn't like, oh, well, you're there, I don't need to be there. I really appreciate that, because it feels like the responsibility, especially for things health, is not just on me. Of course, if it's a dentist appointment, I will take her or he can take her, and we both don't need to be there. But things like her allergy appointments, I really appreciate that we both are there, because it's something that makes me really anxious, and having him there and working on this together really helps comfort me. So this is a conversation that I think you should have before you get married and have kids. So before committing, I think you guys should talk about how you handle stress, both as individuals and together. I think that says a lot about how it might look in the future. I think it's also really good to kind of lay your cards out on the table in that way, so that you kind of know and have a plan going into stressful situations. And it's kind of a little safety plan for you guys. I think that's great. I think that's romantic. Okay, another question I think you guys should talk about is what happens if one of us is mentally unwell? What would that look like? What kind of supports do you guys need? And what is your capacity and understanding with that as well? Because sometimes when I was still learning what I need and what kind of support I need, my husband would try to be there for me, but he would start immediately rapid fire solutions. And I was like, sir, I do not need solutions. I need you to sit here and rub my back. I'm having a panic attack. Don't try to get me to stop. Just sit with me and let's ride it through. So that was nice. Of course, things are going to happen on the fly. Things are going to change, because now more recently I've said to him, no, I want advice. I'm asking you, I'm ranting to you because I want an opinion, which is not necessarily something I might have needed or wanted or was looking for before. So I think obviously you can always have these discussions throughout your relationships repeatedly, but I also think that it's good to kind of see that willingness piece. Are you willing to talk about this, or are you just like, this is not important to me, let's just figure out later? If that's the kind of person you both are, absolutely. But if you're a little bit cuckoo like me, okay. I think this is also a really interesting thing, is to ask your partner what they learned about emotions growing up. I think your history and how you grew up and how your family viewed emotions will play a big part in how you are going to teach emotions in your children and how your emotions are going to feel with each other. Because I have many friends from different cultural backgrounds, and especially in more Asian cultures and many other cultures, but in Asian cultures that I'm familiar with, a lot of times emotions aren't really a thing, or they're not encouraged to be expressed. And sometimes that can be really hard, and sometimes people agree with that, and then sometimes people don't. So just being on the same page and at least having some sort of compromise or understanding, because I wouldn't really want a partner, even if they grew up differently, but I would not want a partner who wasn't aligned with me, especially when we're parenting. I think you kind of need to be on the same page. Otherwise, it's confusing. And I think it's just a recipe for many, many arguments, which happens. And of course, my husband and I are problem solving as we go along. But I think it was nice to know where we each were coming from and how we grew up and how we viewed things. I think it really helped us kind of shape our own unique parenting style and how we work as a team. Another conversation I think is kind of good to have is when you're anxious or panicking or stressed, how do you react and what do you do? Because I know for myself, I get very overwhelmed and I feel like I'm really big and on fire and I need to kind of take the fire outside versus my husband has the fire within. Another thing I think is important is how would you view dividing responsibility? What does that look like both with that physical and emotional and mental load? What would that look like? And then with all of that, what does support look like to you? And I think with all of that, they're kind of similar questions where you just kind of want to see how that person reacts now and how they can anticipate that might looking in the future. For example, my husband and I would babysit for our friends sometimes, and especially the twins when they're growing up. And it was really interesting because I had grown up working with kids, babysitting, all that, but my husband had never even held a baby before the twins. And to see how he was with those kids and to kind of problem solve and be like, oh my God, this is not going to work for me. We need to figure this out. I honestly think it's good to kind of have a guinea pig option or babysit with your husband or babysit with your boyfriend, as long as obviously the parents are comfortable with that. Because it's really interesting to see, especially if you have the opportunity to help with young twins, take it. That's going to show you everything you need to know. Because even I realized that with my OCD that involves a lot of intrusive thoughts, the intrusive thoughts that were coming up for me, even while I was relatively mentally well, was very interesting for me. And to be able to communicate those to my husband and for him to be like, oh my gosh, yeah, that sounds really scary. Instead of, oh my God, what is wrong with you? It said a lot to me. And it felt really good knowing that that's how my husband would react to me having a hard time or being stressed, knowing that like, hey, this is not working for you. This is not working for me. Let's switch. That really said a lot to me. These are good options and good conversations to have before you even get to the point where you're okay, let's get married, let's have kids. And of course, if you don't want kids, again, why are you here? But also, hi, you are welcome. Okay, another thing, if you are dating and you are wanting kids and you're kind of dating with that intention of looking for somebody who is interested in marriage and kids, I think some things to look for and some concrete signs, I guess green flags to look for in relationships and while you're dating is how well do they tolerate emotional discomfort? Because I think that will say a lot to you, because if they are like, I'm not doing this, I'm tapping out, I'm not willing to deal with you, just wait until you're pregnant and wait until you're postpartum. Well, I was way easier to deal with before I had a child and before I was pregnant. And then another thing is, do they apologize without defensiveness? So when you have an argument, pay attention to how they apologize or how they deal with that and how they deal with the after or the actual conversation. Are they defensive? Are they blaming you? Any of those things. What does that look like? And obviously pay attention to yourself too. These are good questions to ask yourself. In a relationship, am I the one who needs to work on this? Or am I the one who is defensive? And am I the one who doesn't tolerate discomfort? The thing is, do they take initiative? I think that says a lot too, because I see a lot of couples who, specifically the man, doesn't do shit. They don't plan things, and there's no intuitive like, oh babe, I saw that you were running out of this, I added it to your grocery list, or do you want me to go pick it up for you, or I picked it up for you, here it is, I put it in your bathroom. Like, is there any kind of that initiation, intuitiveness? Because now I like that my husband will take that initiative of, okay, I'm going to take her to the park because you look, you need some rest, or I went and picked up this because I noticed that we needed it. Obviously those things come to with time and having a more mature partner, but those things are nice to know and to look for. And I know I'm going to get a text after I say this, but for example, a lovely dear friend in my life has a partner who she's told him many times, I really like this tea. It'd be really nice if that when I came over, this tea was here so I could have it. And maybe you could make me a cup of tea sometime. And it never happened in like 4 years. Don't come for me. It's a good example. Another thing is, how do they handle inconvenience? Because let me tell you, dealing with a pregnant lady or having a child is not always convenient. And my husband is so impatient. He is so impatient and he doesn't like to be inconvenienced. That's a big thing for him. He doesn't like it. What I think is interesting though, how he handles it. So you cannot like it. I don't being inconvenienced either. And we all have our moments, but in general, how do they handle it? What does that look like? My husband, he gets a little bit irritated, and I always say he has kimchi in his blood because he's Korean and he's a spicy man. Most of the time, he's grumpy often, and I love him for it, and it's annoying. But I think you need to know that about your partner. And if you're willing to accept it, that's fine. It's also, what is your tolerance? What is your capacity? I needed a man who would be willing. I needed a man who would try. I didn't need him to be perfect. I just needed him to care enough about me and our relationship to try and commit to it. Not just try once or say, yeah, I'll give it a go, babe. Actually try and learn. That's what I'm looking for above all else. So my husband does not like being inconvenienced. However, does he take that out on me? No. The other one is, do they stay present when you are overwhelmed? Or do they just back the fuck up and leave you alone? Which sometimes is what you need. But you know, if it's more like support, if that's what you need, versus avoidance. And the last one is, can they sit with you in your grief, your anxiety, your depression without making it about themselves? I've heard a lot of times where if the husband is talking to his wife and the wife is like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed, or I'm so sad, or whatever, they're like, well, I am too. And it's, you can sit with them and have empathy and be like, I totally understand how you're feeling. I'm sitting with you through it as well, versus, well, I'm going through it. Why are you not supporting me? And of course, there's like a give and take in there. Then your partner should also reciprocate that support. I'm not just saying the husband or the partner needs to do absolutely everything for you all the time and correctly, whatever. But I think it's that whole not taking it personally thing and not making it about you. Sometimes it's okay to say, I get it. I'm sitting with you through it and we're doing this together. And it's that sitting with you and being a team versus that competitive victimization. Parenting is just like consistent and constant stress. And if someone collapses under that mild stress or inconvenience, that's information. It's good for you to know. And you do with that information what you will. Something else that I had to kind of learn was letting my husband step up. So I'm a total control freak and I'm a bit of a perfectionist. And of course, that ego comes with that naturally. And that's something that I really had to work on because I had this idea that I knew best. My way was right. And he had his way that was wrong or not as good. And I think I had to let go of that very quickly. And I had to kind of relinquish control. Because I think doing things yourself, there's this weird martyrism-ness with that sometimes where it's, no, you can't do it as well as I can, so I'm going to run myself into the ground and do this because I can do it better than you. I think it's hard and it's really vulnerable to relinquish that control to someone, especially at the hands of you and your child. It's hard to trust somebody because my example, I grew up teaching, working, and babysitting kids. I've always had kids in my life. When I babysat, I knew exactly what to do. But versus my husband, and it was walked into the room and it was completely all new for him. He had never changed a diaper and he had never bathed the kid or never put a kid to bed, never fed a kid. It was all brand new. So already I'm walking into this thinking, I know better than you. I'm the teacher, you're the student. So it will always be that. And I think I had to kind of let go of that ego, and if he could get her to go to sleep and I couldn't, a hit to the heart, a hit to the ego, or if she wanted him versus me. I think there's a beautiful thing in teaching your children that they can trust the other parent and your partner, because if they see you and they look at mom and they're like, mom doesn't trust dad, why would the kid trust dad? So I think I had to think of it and reframe my perspective on that, because once I kind of realized, oh, my husband is just as good as me at being a parent and taking care of me and our kid, it got a lot easier to kind of let him take over control. And of course, I still look at him, I'm like, oh, you're not doing it right. But it works, and it works for them. And if it works, and if it doesn't, letting them figure it out and not intervening unless asked to. Oh my God, the amount of times I will watch my husband struggle on the baby cam, and he says to me, I will let you know when I need you. I will let you know when I'm tapping out. And I come running in and he's like, oh my God, get out. It's that trust. It's about trust. It's about me trusting him as a parent and me trusting him as a person to be able to figure it out and problem solve on his own. And me showing our daughter that you can't trust your dad because mom has to come in and save the day. It's very different from when I'm overstimulated and I say, it's the best thing for me and our daughter if I swap out versus my husband thinking I'm not capable. And I was realizing that my husband would offer, he would text me and be like, hey, do you want me to swap out? Because I have that ego thing where I'm like, I will get this done. I finish what I started. I will do it and I will do it my way. And I had to let that go because what is best for my daughter? A regulated parent. Does that matter if it's me or dad? No. She needs a regulated parent. And if I can't be regulated, I need to learn to swap out. So that's something that I really had to learn. And I think partnership just grows with practice. Like, it takes time. It takes experience. It takes knowing each other really well. It takes relearning each other every single day. I keep saying, let your kids rise to the occasion. Let your partner rise to the occasion. Don't set them up for failure. Let them have that opportunity. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be flawless. It just, again, has to be willing. Are they willing to try? Are they willing to figure it out with you? And are they willing to receive that feedback? Because there are times where my husband will come out of the bedroom and he's like, I don't understand, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, girl, I know. But maybe try this because I noticed this or I heard her screaming about this. Maybe try this. And if he's like, no, that doesn't work for me, that works, then there's no point why have a conversation. And of course, sometimes too, he's not looking for critiques. And so I think my husband and I have a really good method now where I'll ask him, are you needing support or do you want advice? And so he'll ask me the same. And sometimes it's both, or I need support first and then advice. So it really just depends what works for you. But I think once I kind of let that go and let my own ego down, it helped me be a better parent and it helped my husband become a better parent. Not that he was a bad one before, but you know what I mean. And so the last thing I kind of want to talk about too is that grace without lowering your standards and that weaponized incompetence, which I cannot stand. I can't, ick, instantly ick. Grace doesn't mean tolerating incompetence. And it does not mean carrying everything alone. Having grace for someone is not chastising them when they're trying really hard and they're still not getting it. But they still need to try very hard. That is not grace. That is acceptance of incompetence. Grace needs to allow for learning. It needs to recognize effort over result. And it's something that you guys need to build together. The amount of times where I've seen on TikTok or my friends where they're like, well, I don't know how to do that, or I can't do that, or I'm not as good as you are, so I just left it for you. I'm like, that's such bullshit. Figure it the fuck out. Seriously. Ugh. I think it is ridiculous. I'm like, you are a parent, you're an adult, figure it out. If I wasn't here, what would you do? It's disgusting, it's unattractive, and you need to do better. And I have a lot of empathy for you, and I have a lot of grace for you. If you're the one who is accepting this bullshit, maybe think about why. Maybe think about not accepting it. And I think it's really hard because there's a lot of times where you're like, shit, I might have picked the wrong person and now I have kids with them and fuck. That's really hard. So I say all this with a ton of grace and love and empathy, but that's why I also say this because if they are not willing, maybe neither should you. Just saying. And if you are single and you're looking for a partner, please don't lower your standards just because you want to have a baby quick. That doesn't work. and it's just not worth it. I really think that things don't need to be perfect, and you don't have to be aligned in every single aspect, and things don't need to be absolutely smooth sailing all the time in your relationship. But I think that it's incredibly important to create a solid foundation. You cannot build a house on a rocky foundation. You need those pillars to be strong. And I don't know anything about building a house, but I'll ask my husband because he's an architect. But I think that you can't build a house on wobbly foundation. You need to do your research. You need to use the right products. You need to make sure it's good quality. You need to make sure it's put in the right places, because if there's an earthquake and some things fall in the house, you need to make sure that the whole house isn't going to come down as a result. And again, my relationship has not been perfect. I've known and been with my husband for a very, very long time, and we still have very ugly moments, because every couple does. And I think it's nice to be honest with each other about that. And I think that you should be honest with your friends about what's going on in your relationship, as long as you trust them. I think that it makes you feel a lot safer and a lot more normal. When I talk to my mom friends and we're like, oh, I'm going to kill my husband, it's like, yeah, same girl. It's a Tuesday. What do you mean? I think that it's good. I think it's good to talk about. I think it's good to get different perspectives. But again, be very careful with who you trust with that information, because a lot of people will take joy into hearing that other people are suffering. So I think you need to be careful with who you trust with that information. I think you need to be careful with who you listen to when they give you advice, because if you would not switch places with that person, you probably should not be taking their advice. Skills can be learned. Emotional capacity cannot be forced. They have to be, say it with me, willing. Choose someone that will hold you in every form that you are and every form that you will become. And above all, choose somebody who is willing. It doesn't need to be perfect. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode. I'm very happy to have you here, and I'm so excited for next month. I'm thinking I'm going to start on my trying to conceive journey, so that should be interesting. Oh my gosh, it feels like it was so long ago, because I have a really good friend who's trying for a baby right now, and I'm so excited. So I think that would be helpful for right now. It probably would have been helpful a couple of months ago, to be honest. But here we are. So I think I'm going to start working on my trying to conceive journey and probably sprinkle some themed episodes in between those. But yeah, I'm really excited about that. I wrote that out a while ago, so it'll be nice to kind of revisit that little walk down memory lane. Thank you so much for being here. You can find me more on Instagram and TikTok at Matcha Mamas Podcast. You can watch the video version of this episode on Spotify and on YouTube. Drop me a comment, subscribe, follow, all those lovely things if you want to stay in touch and keep up with what we're up to. I'm very excited again to still be back and still be working on this. I'm very proud of myself, and I'm really happy to have you guys here. Thank you for coming and hanging out with me and my forehead. And yeah, so much love to you. I hope you're having a lovely week so far and that you're hanging in there. Until we meet again, keep pouring into your own cup. Bye. Mwah.